Badlands, running to Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back in stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
If you guys are here, that means it's still closed, right? Well, if it opens up, they take you to it. Right, well, no, I haven't beaten those down. That's correct. That's correct. Thank you. Sure. Yeah. It's not like you're in a how do you look? Very used. Thank you. Say no more. Short, dark. You see all those magazine covers in like this?
What is the Sovereign Alliance? The Sovereign Alliance are a collection of leaders and countries that are aligned not in the vision for their countries, but against a vision that has been thrust upon them. I believe that the Sovereign Alliance is less a battle for something and more a battle against something. They are against globalism, collectivism. They are against the rules-based international order.
Zohran Alliance, the latest addition to Badlands Rise merch, available now at badlandsmedia.tv/rise.
The United States, Mr. J.D. Vance.
I'm American made. I got American parts. I got American faith in America's heart. They say.
Mr. Vice President, thanks for taking the time to do this.
Absolutely. Well, I love to be here with all of you. It's a beautiful building and a beautiful morning. I always joke with Matt, but it's not actually not a joke. I'm being dead serious that this is the most well-sourced journalist in Washington, D.C. And if you remember maybe 6 months ago, maybe it was actually a year and a half ago, when there was this big conversation in the Washington Post about what do we do to actually get in touch with the other half of America? How do we actually make our journalism more appealing to the half of the country that doesn't agree with far left politics? And I think I texted Jeff Bezos and I said, if you're really serious about this, you should just hire Matt Boyle and make him run your entire political reporting shop. Now, Larry Soloff, I'm sure, is pissed off at me for that suggestion. But unfortunately, for the Washington Post, they did not take my advice. So I'm proud to be here with Matt Boyle and Breitbart, and thanks for everything you guys do.
All right. So, Mr. Vice President, the big news this morning is new jobs numbers blew away expectations.
Huge.
From the September numbers. So these were delayed because of the government shutdown. More than double, 119,000 new jobs. And then also there's some interesting stuff in the wages numbers there as well that shows wages on the rise. Your thoughts on the jobs numbers?
Okay, so a huge jobs report, and I assume the market is going crazy right now, probably just opened, because what this shows is that the Trump economic policies are actually working. And you've got 119,000 new jobs. Economists thought that we would have about 50,000 new jobs, but that's actually just the headline number. If you look below the surface, I think the numbers are actually better. So number one, wages continue to way outpace inflation. If you go back to the 3 years of the Biden administration, the average American worker actually lost about $3,000 of take-home pay. In the first 10 months of the Trump economy, we've increased take-home pay by about $1,200, adjusting for inflation. So that's a huge, huge thing, and this jobs report confirms that. You have the number of manufacturing hours worked in the economy is actually going up. You see the private sector is really driving this economic growth and is driving the job creation. And this is really important, I know, to you, Matt, but really to me. And it's that we are seeing the job growth go to native-born American citizens. And what happened under the Biden administration is, to the extent there was any job growth at all, if you looked at the data, almost all of the net job creation in the United States under the Biden administration went to the foreign-born. Now, of course, some of those people are illegal immigrants to the United States, but that means that a lot of the job creation was actually going to illegal aliens who shouldn't have been in our country. The best thing that you can say about the Trump economy is that American jobs are going to American workers for a change, and that's the thing that I'm proudest about with these numbers.
Right. So now another big story is that last night President Trump announced that tomorrow he's going to be hosting a meeting with the New York City mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. He calls him communist.
I might have a
He's not
stomach
wrong
bug
about that. But anyway, point is that the Mamdani's rise can be attributed to his, everybody's, the new buzzword, if you will, is affordability.
Sure.
Right? Like, so how do we, people out there feel like they're, the economic situation isn't that great. Look, we're 10 months to the day here since the inauguration. But they want to see more. They want to see more
Yep.
action. We've seen a lot of steps you guys have taken. A lot of people are putting a lot of faith in what Secretary Besson is saying, that the first half of next year, the economy is going to boom because of the policies you guys have enacted. What's your message to those out there who feel like that they haven't seen that gain yet?
Yeah, well, first, Matt, the government shutdown didn't help, to be clear. And I do think that actually pumped the brakes a little bit on all the great economic news that we were seeing. And look, the Democrats, our attitude was, why are the Democrats doing this? They're the party of government. Why are they shutting down the government? For 10 years, they said to shut down the government is an act of economic terrorism on the United States. And it's sort of a question that answers itself, because I think that they were so worried about what the Trump administration is doing that they were willing to blow the whole thing up, hold a gun to the head of the American economy in order to get what they want. And that's going to cause a little bit of damage, but I think it'll be ultimately very, very minor, because we were able to get the shutdown wrapped up. And I guess my message to the American people who are still feeling like things are unaffordable, who are still feeling like things are rough out there is look, we get it. And we hear you, and we know that there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of wood to chop, because the Biden administration put us in such a very, very tough spot. And the way that I think about this is it's always helpful to take this from the abstractions to the actual real things that people are worried about. So take, for example, a dozen eggs. I'll never forget this. It was one of the very first, maybe the single first press conference that the president had done since he had started his second term. And some reporter, probably from ABC, yells at him and says, "What have you done about the price of eggs? The price of eggs are up 300% over the past 3 years." And it's like, it was January the 23rd. It's like, What do you mean, what have we done in 2 days? It's going to take a little bit of time to fix that problem. And so if you're an American who's just struggling to get by, you work hard, you pay your taxes, you want your kids to have good opportunities, and the price of eggs goes from $2 a dozen to $8 a dozen under the Biden administration, and then under the Trump administration, it goes from $8 a dozen to maybe $6.50 a dozen. Well, to you, that is still a major problem. And even though we've made incredible progress, we understand that there's a lot more work to do. And the thing that I'd ask for the American people is a little bit of patience. This economy was not harmed in 10 months. It took a deliberate 4-year administration that was making life harder for everyday Americans, that was importing foreign workers instead of giving jobs to American workers, that was over-regulating, overtaxing, overspending. They were doing everything wrong. And as much progress as we've made, it's going to take a little bit of time for every American to feel that economic boom, which we really do believe is coming. We believe that we're on the front end of it, but we also recognize that we've got a lot of work to do to undo the damage that Joe Biden did to the American economy. And the last one I'll say, Matt, it's let's be honest, it's not just Joe Biden. As much as I think Joe Biden was one of the most disastrous presidents of American history, we had a policy in this country for 40 years of shipping American jobs overseas and hiring foreign workers instead of American workers. That has caused the economic stagnation of the American middle class. There was one bright spot in 40 years, and that was the first Trump administration. And there is going to be a massive exception to that 40-year trajectory of American decline, and that's the second Trump administration. We just got to keep it going.
Right. So now we're a year removed from you and President Trump winning a massive electoral victory in November 2024. And we're just a couple of months since our friend Charlie Kirk was brutally murdered by a radical leftist. But at the same time, we are seeing some, whether it's inside Congress, outside Congress, some divisions in the MAGA movement. And I get it that there's this issue, that issue, whatever. What would be your message to how to reunify this movement for the fights ahead, whether it's the midterm elections, 2028 and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have to remember that we have a lot more in common than we do not in common. And that the disagreements that animate the Republican Party, while they matter and they're important, I think these debates should happen. They should happen in podcasts, and they should happen in the media. They should happen on the op-ed pages. It's totally reasonable for the people who make up this coalition to argue about what our foreign policy should be, what our specific tax policy should be, what our housing policy should be. I mean, I had a meeting just yesterday that was focused in the West Wing about how do we get housing more affordable for young Americans because of all the things that got completely out of control under the Biden administration. You had homes that doubled or tripled in price depending on the geography in 4 years under the Biden administration. We've got to solve that problem for our young people so they can afford to buy homes, start families, and actually build their own American dream. So I think my attitude is let these debates play out, but don't let the debates that we're having internally blind us to the fact that we are up against a radical leftist movement that murdered my friend a couple of months ago and that would throw many people in the Trump administration in prison, not for doing anything illegal, but for not following the far left's agenda. That is the real opponent here. A political movement in this country that has no animating principle, that has no agenda for the American people. Their sole obsession is to take down Donald Trump and anybody who helped Donald Trump govern. Focus on the enemy, have our debates, but focus on the enemy so that we can win victories that matter for the American people. That's my message.
Right. So now one of the things that powered your guys' victory, I think, a year ago was a political realignment in this country where we're seeing working class people shift to the Republican side. And the Democrats, frankly, are becoming the party of the rich. There was a new report that our partners here that put on this event, CGCN, published a couple of weeks ago called Class Dismissed 2. And in this report, they go into detail about how some of the numbers on this political realignment, 75%, more than 75% of the top 30 income congressional districts are represented by Democrats now. That's a totally new thing. The last 3 presidential elections, the Democrats counties were represented more than 60%, in the case of the 2020 election, more than 70% of aggregate GDP in this country. President Trump won counties 30-something% in each of those elections. So your thoughts on what we're seeing now with this political realignment,
Yeah.
some of those statistics?
So let me say a few things, Matt. So first of all, I think that part of what you see as division in the Republican Party is a consequence of this realignment. We have a new governing coalition. We have a new political coalition. We have people who didn't used to vote Republican, and frankly, they have different preferences sometimes on certain issues than maybe the Ronald Reagan or George W. Bush Republican Party did. I think the Donald Trump Party is a fundamentally new phenomenon in American politics. I think that it can govern the country successfully for the next generation. But some of those divisions you talk about are just the natural outgrowth of the fact that we've got a lot of working class voters who frankly don't care what was Republican orthodoxy 25 years ago. And so they're pushing the party in a different direction. And again, I think that that debate is natural and normal, and it's something that we should frankly lean into, recognizing that the far left is really the problem we have to confront in this country. The second thing that I'll say about it, Matt, is I think it's a great thing. You know, and I'm biased. Obviously, I grew up in a working class family. I was raised by the kind of people who were blue dog Democrats, socially conservative Democrats in the 80s and 90s, and have turned hard towards Donald Trump's Republican Party. These are the people who built America's greatest icons, who built America's greatest buildings, who drive our food into the grocery store every day. They are the human beings who actually make this country run. I'm proud of them, and I want to keep the Trump coalition together. That's one of the things that we have to do in 2026. And this is my third point, and this is tough, because one of the things that was true of the Democratic coalition in, say, the 1990s is that because the Democratic coalition in the 90s was more upscale, they showed up, the Republican coalition in the 1990s was more upscale. They showed up in midterms. So Republicans tended to do a little bit better in midterm elections in the 1990s than, say, Republicans do today. And that's because while these working class voters are great, they're also people who don't necessarily show up to vote in the midterms all the time. We've got to motivate them. We've got to get them out to vote. I think it's one of the lessons that we learned in Virginia and New Jersey is that when Donald Trump is not on the ballot, you've got to give people something to actually believe in, something to be inspired by to get out there and vote. They're not going to vote just because you have an R next to your name. You've got to speak to this new working class coalition. And the one worry that I have when I look at so many of our great congressional allies, I do think that some of our folks in Congress, they want to go back to the Republican Party of 20 years ago. That Republican Party was a Republican Party that lost and that couldn't successfully govern the country. We need to lean into this new coalition, do a better job serving them, and that's how we get them to show up in these midterm elections so that we can win not just presidential races, but midterm races too.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned George W. Bush at the beginning of that answer. Now, there's a lot of news going on out there. Today is a somber day for the Bush family and for your predecessor, former Vice President Dick Cheney, who passed away. Today's his funeral. So I wanted to see if you have any thoughts on or message to the Cheney family. I know there was some misreporting out there about whether or not you were invited to that or whatever. But outside of that, there's also another big report that came out a couple of days ago about how George W. Bush and the people around him are plotting for retaking the Republican Party from President Trump and you down the road and going back to the old way of doing things. I guess they don't like to win, but the point is that that's out there. So any response to that as well?
Well, first of all, my condolences go to Dick Cheney and his family. Obviously, there are some political disagreements there, but he was a guy who served his country. We certainly wish his family all the best in this moment of grieving. On the issue of George W. Bush, I mean, look, as you know, Matt, I don't put stock in any story that doesn't come from Matthew J. Boyle at Breitbart News. So this could be totally fake news. But I definitely think, and you already see this, you saw this in 2020, you're going to see it in 2025 and 2026. There is an effort to try to wrest control of the Republican Party away from the voters and away from the coalition that really delivered the big victory in 2024. I think it's a huge mistake. Look, the American people don't want stupid wars and America's jobs going overseas and wide open borders. That is, whether intentional or not, that was the legacy of the Republican Party that came before Donald J. Trump. I'm glad the president got us away from that Republican Party. It lost, but it was also a disaster for the United States of America. Let's actually have a foreign policy where we focus on the interests of American citizens. Let's have an economic policy that's about building in the United States of America rather than shipping all of our jobs overseas and getting Wall Street enriched in the process. Let's have an economic policy that's about more self-sufficiency. I mean, I have 3 kids. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. I don't want to wake up in a country where I take my kid to the doctor and they can't get antibiotics, because the antibiotics that were invented in the United States of America are manufactured in some foreign country. That is the legacy of the Republican Party that came before Donald J. Trump. We're not going back to it.
Okay, so now you mentioned the foreign policy and the deals that we're seeing around the world. One of the things that's been the hallmark here of President Trump's second term, again, we're 10 months to the day since the inauguration, has been these deals. We were going to try to do this event last month, but I know you got called over to Israel on the Gaza deal.
Sure.
So give us kind of and by the way, we have in the audience here today, I know that there are ambassadors from at least 2 places. The European Union ambassador and the Taiwanese ambassador are here. Walk us through how President Trump has approached these various big picture deals. Because, I mean, he's got more than, I think, 85% of world GDP now in trade deals.
Sure.
With the United States, and I lost count of how many peace deals he's done this year.
Yeah, well, greetings to the ambassadors. We're thrilled to have you, of course, and greetings to everybody else, including even the fake news. So I'm sure is reporting there in the back.
There's a lot of fake news.
I'm sure
they're all lined up.
I'm sure there are. I can see their fake news eyes peering up at me. I'm sure, ready to misreport everything that I've said today. But no, we love you guys too. Kind of. So here's the thing about the president's negotiating style. And I actually, we were a little delayed because the president called me right before I got on stage just about one of these deals that we're working on. And what I love about it is that it's never enough, right? And so you bring him a deal and, he sort of asks for this, and this. We want this tariff rate. We want this country to drop their tariff barriers. We want this country to drop their non-tariff barriers. And you say, I'm never going to be able to get that done. And then you get it done and you bring it to him and he said, well, I want 3 other things too. Because his attitude is he wants to get the best deal possible for the American people. And for too long, we had trade negotiators that so believed in the fake idea of free trade over fair trade that they were willing to sell American workers down the river without actually negotiating on the interests of American workers. And so whether it's with China or India or any of the countries that we struck deals, the basic principle is we want Americans to have better access to their markets. We believe in our workers. We think that we have the best products in the world. We want to be able to sell them everywhere. That's number 1. Number 2, we don't want foreign products to undercut the wages of American workers. We're actually going to protect our markets, protect our important industries, and that's a very important part of the Trump trade plan. And you've seen it happen in a lot of different ways. And then the final thing, and this raises your point about Gaza or any of these other foreign deals, is we've been able to use the incredible economic leverage of the United States of America. I mean, we're 25%, probably a little bit more than that, of the world GDP. Why don't we ever use our economic leverage to achieve peace? Because when countries aren't fighting each other, when they're actually using their economic talents to manufacture good things rather than weapons to kill each other, then that actually creates incredible economic opportunities for Americans. And that's what the president, that's why he's so focused on peace. He's fundamentally a humanitarian, and we've got 8 peace deals at this point. We're working on number 9 and number 10. And I think that, if he gets number 10 purely for mathematical harmony, if he gets to 10, the Nobel Prize should be awarded to Donald J. Trump, even though he's certainly earned it with the first 8. But I also think that there's this sense that while he wants to save lives, he also sees a world where people are engaging in commerce with one another rather than killing one another. And he just, he's a tough guy, but he's not a violent human. He's not a person, who I think understands violence at a sort of fundamental level. It's why don't you stop killing each other and start trading with one another? Why, rather than Russia and Ukraine killing one another, why don't they actually engage in some commerce with one another, travel between the 2 countries, engage in some sort of cultural exchange? That is his fundamental perspective that he takes into these things. And fundamentally, if we get more peace in the world, it's good for American workers. It's good for the American people. And the president's going to keep on pursuing peace. He's done very well so far, but he's going to keep on working at it.
Yeah, so there's a lot I want to pack into this next question. So one of the things what we've seen, I think, since your guys' victory last year, the whole world over, everybody I've talked to around the world really seems to have rallied to President Trump's vision on things like trade and immigration. I just saw, and particularly with regard to China and how we need to have a better deal with regard to there. And we just saw the president get back from there.
Yep.
I just saw comments that Pope Leo made about immigration. He said just the other day, and we did a huge story on it on Breitbart last night, that every country should get to decide. I'm paraphrasing him here. Every country should get to decide who gets to come in. I mean, that's amazing to see that from the Pope himself.
Sure.
Your thoughts on more broadly how President Trump really does seem to have electrified the world and woke them up to these major issues that we're talking about here.
Yeah. Well, Matt, you know I'm a devout Catholic, so I followed those comments closely, including on, of course, Breitbart.com. And that's my third Breitbart shout out. I've done pretty good, right?
There's a lot of
20
Breitbart
minutes,
shout-outs.
not bad.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. But you know, it's interesting because you may not know it, judging purely from the comments of some people on social media, but the Catholic Church's views on this are actually quite clear. And it's that, yes, you must treat immigrants humanely. On the other hand, every nation has the right to control its borders. And obviously how you strike that balance is very important, but there's a lot of room there to actually control your own borders for the sake of your own people. One of the things, Matt, that you know always frustrated me about the immigration debate is that we ignored how open borders were not actually good for the dignity even of the illegal migrants themselves. You had little kids getting sex trafficked. We had 300,000 missing children under the Biden administration that the Mexican drug cartels had brought into our country. You had cartels using, in some cases, 9 and 10-year-old children as drug mules for their activity. Border security is not just good for American citizens. It is the humanitarian thing to do for the entire world. Because when you empower the cartels and when you empower the human traffickers, whether in the United States or anywhere else, you're empowering the very worst people in the world. Now, you've seen this in Europe. You've seen this in a whole host of places. But, you know, it's almost like Europe and America got this idea in their head that to control your border at all was fundamentally, you know, uncompassionate. Maybe it was even racist and bad. The president and I reject that wholesale. Putting the interests of your citizens first, it's not some ancillary thing. It is the very purpose of government. I am the American vice president. I wish very good things for the people of Mexico or the people of the United Kingdom or the people of any other country. But my priority, my charge is to look after the people of the United States of America. And you cannot do that if you're flooding the country with a ton of illegal immigrants and the drugs and the crime that they bring.
Yeah, so the last question I've got, please give him applause for that one. That's incredible. Okay, so Mr. Vice President, the last question
Even the Washington Post applause.
I know, I think they did. So
I got fired.
So Mr. Vice President, the last question I got for you on that note, so is that there's a big discussion right now about healthcare in this country.
Yes.
The ACA subsidies expire at the end of the year. There's a lot of questions about what's going to happen about this. The Democrats shut the government down supposedly over this. But where does this go? What do we do to address healthcare prices and premium prices and so on and so forth? What does that look like? Is it a reconciliation plan? Walk us through what happened.
So what's so crazy about this, Matt, is right before the government shut down, we had a meeting with Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer in the Oval Office.
Is this where they get President Trump gave them the MAGA hats? Yeah.
This is not just that. But the president whispers to one of his personal assistants. They're all very good people. And she kind of runs off. And I think to myself immediately, oh, what the hell have I gotten myself into? And she comes back with 2 Trump 2028 hats to give to Jeffries and Schumer. And then he has the photographer come in and he points at Jeffries as he's holding the Trump 2028 hat. And he's like, he says to the photographer, make sure Hakeem gets that. I'm sure he's going to want to use it in his campaign advertisements. And it was like a hysterical moment. But when we got to the serious stuff and they said, we really want to address the healthcare problem confronting the American people, the president said, well, absolutely. We agree. We want to address the healthcare problem confronting the American people. In fact, you people screwed it up with Obamacare, the Unaffordable Care Act. And now you're coming to us saying, let's fix it. Great. Let's fix it. And then they said, I think they were kind of caught off guard, and they're like, well, but we want the fix before we're willing to open up the government. And the president was like, that's like 3 days from now. You want us to fix American healthcare in the next 3 days, and unless you do it, you're gonna shut down the government? How about we open up the government and then work together to fix American healthcare? And of course, we know the history. They rejected it. They shut down the government. But I don't want to get ahead of the president, Matt, because we had a very, very good meeting in the Oval Office yesterday. I think that we have a great healthcare plan coming together. I think that it's going to get Republican and Democrat support. And I think the president, look, right now, the American people get crap healthcare, and they pay way too much for it. You have people who are paying thousands of dollars a month in premiums for a family of 4, a family of 5, and the access to healthcare is really low. This system is broken. The Democrats broke it, but who cares? We're going to work together if they're willing to fix it. And the interesting thing, Matt, is, people say, and this is one of the things I love about the president, people come to the president and say, no, don't talk about health care. That's a graveyard for Republicans. Republicans always lose on health care. And the president's like, I don't care about the politics of it. This system is screwed up for the American people. We need to fix it. So let's go and do it. Politics be damned. I love that. That's leadership. And that's exactly what we should want coming from the White House.
Mr. Vice President, really want to thank you for taking the time here.
Thank you, Matt. Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
I'm American made. I got American parts. I got American faith.
You could make the argument that the more pharmaceuticals we have, the sicker we get. The more statins prescribed, the more heart disease there is, the more metformin taken, the more diabetes. And trust me, the more Ozempic we take, the more obese we'll get. That's because you cannot medicate a lifestyle disease. But 20 years ago, a study was done on a breakthrough, natural alternative that naturally helps the body shed excess fat. It naturally helps improve metabolic health. There are no drugs in it. It's Big Pharma's worst nightmare, and it's guaranteed to solve the problem. Head to badlandshealth.com to get started.
How many do you want? 5, 10? You got it. You do. Fine. You do. Got it. You're going to see use it. You need help with that?
Andrew, do you want a box to sit on? Sure. I just have to give it back because it's for some.
Yeah, sweet.
It should be like short enough so you can at least sit. Still more helpful.
I'm so used to crowd.
Is that a little better?
Yes.
It's better than like the ground. Better? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Henry, crowd. Crowd moment. Sitting in front of us. Yeah. Who's going in?
Facing desk.
The desk?
He's at the desk.
Evan?
Facing, he'll be at the desk. Yeah.
What's that?
Yes.
Are they across from each other? How are they?
I don't know. There's people behind the desk.
There's people behind. So we're going to, that's going to cross over.
Well, thank you very much. We've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race against tough people, very smart people. And he beat them easily. And I congratulated him. And we talked about some things in very strong common, like housing and getting housing built, and food and prices, and the price of oil is coming way down. That anything I do is going to be good for New York. If I can get prices down, it's good for New York, and we've got them down, way down from last year. We have, as you know, I've been saying to a lot of people, Walmart said that Thanksgiving this year is exactly 25% less than last year. So that's good for New York, good for everybody. But I just want to congratulate. I think you're going to have hopefully a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am. I will say there's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. And we're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, having a strong and very safe New York. And congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Please.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was about which is New York City and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president. I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
Thank you very much. Any questions, please?
President Trump, Stephen Nelson from the New York Post. I have a question for you and then also one for Maryland.
Sure.
For you, you referred to Mr. Mamdani as a communist. Can you describe why you feel that way? And also, will you do anything to stop him from arresting Prime Minister Netanyahu in Maryland? For you, you referred to Mr. Mamdani as a communist. Can you describe why you feel that way? And also, will you do anything to stop him from arresting Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, we didn't discuss your second part of the question, but who knows? I mean, we're going to see what works, or he's going to change also. We all change. I changed a lot. From when I first came to office. It's now quite a while ago. It's quite a while. My first term was great. We had a greatest economy in the history of our country. We're doing even better now. We're doing much better now than we did even the first term. And I can tell you some of my views have changed. And we had discussions on something. I'm not going to discuss what they were, but that I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he's going to be. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually, and some very liberal people. He won't surprise them because they already like him.
And Mr. Mamdani, it sounds like you had a productive discussion, but just days ago you referred to President Trump as a despot who betrayed the country. You said you would be his worst nightmare and accused him of having a fascist agenda. Are you planning to retract any of these remarks in order to improve the relationship?
I think both President Trump and I, we are very clear about our positions and our views. And what I really appreciate about the president is the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers. And frankly, that is something that could transform the lives of 8.5 million people who are currently struggling under a cost of living crisis, with 1 in 4 living in poverty. And the meeting came back again and again to what it could look like to just struggle to afford it, but actually start to live in it.
And I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not.
Syria. Given your assessment, like, what do you say for the Lebanese today? It's the Independence Day in Lebanon, and what is your next move to push toward disarmament, the disarmament of Hezbollah?
Well, we are pushing for total disarmament of Hamas and, frankly, everybody else. And we actually have peace in the Middle East. As you know, the King of Saudi Arabia just left yesterday. We had some great meetings, and he's made a contribution toward the United States of more than $1 trillion. We have now over $20 trillion coming in. No country has ever had anything like that, not even close. If you go to 2 trillion or 1 trillion, it's a lot. We have 20 or 21 trillion dollars. I think that Hezbollah has been a problem in Lebanon, a big problem. We're working with Lebanon. We're working with everybody in the Middle East. That's another thing I think we have in common. We want to see peace in the Middle East. And we actually have now, for the first time, peace in the Middle East after 3,000 years. And now we're going to refine it. And I think you're going to see some very positive things happen.
There's a potential to invite the Lebanese president to meet you to the White House.
I would do that, absolutely. And if the mayor would like to be here for that meeting, because I know he feels very strongly. I think you feel very, very strongly about peace in the Middle East.
We desperately want it. And that's something that I shared with the president, that when I spoke to New Yorkers who had voted for the president last November on Hillside Avenue and Fordham Road, I asked them why. I heard again 2 major reasons. One was that they wanted an end to forever wars. They wanted an end to the taxpayer dollars we had funding violations of human rights, and they wanted to address the cost of living crisis. And I appreciated the chance to discuss both of those things.
You said a lot of my voters actually voted for him, and I'm okay with that. I'll do that. I'll sign it. Give it to me. I'll sign it in a minute. That's pretty good.
Mr. President, differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mamdani, you've called ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work them out. And I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, you know, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people, that we want to get them out. I think he wants to get out maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length. Yes, please.
Yeah, 2 questions, if I may. One for you, Mr. President, on BBC in a second. But first of all, for the mayor-elect, you're both from different parts of the political spectrum. You're both populists, though, and I just wonder to what extent the president's campaign style.
Well, I actually told the president that so much of the focus of our campaign has been on the cost of living crisis. And when we asked those New Yorkers who had voted for the president, we saw an increase in his numbers in New York City that came back to the same issue: cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. And they spoke about the cost of groceries, the cost of rent, the cost of Con Ed, the cost of childcare. And too often politicians are looking to lecture to New Yorkers what they should care about as opposed to listen. And when we spoke to those voters who voted for President Trump, we heard them speak about the cost of living. We focused on that same cost of living. And that's where I am really looking forward to delivering for New Yorkers in partnership with the president on the affordability agenda.
And I think we have to work a little bit. We talked about Con Edison. We have to work a little bit on getting the prices, because we've gotten fuel prices way down, but it hasn't shown up in Con Edison. And we're going to have to talk to them. If we're sending them fuel at a much lower price than it was a year ago, which is true, we have to get Con Edison to start lowering the rates.
Absolutely.
And if I may, last week you told me you were pushing ahead with your plans to sue the BBC for up to $5 billion. You're going to speak to Prime Minister Starmer as well. Is there any progress or any updates on those issues?
Well, we get along very well with the Prime Minister. We made a deal with UK. I like him. He's a fine person. And, I think they have some big energy problems. They've got windmills all over the place. They're going to have to start using other methods because their energy is out of control. Talking about in the UK, it's out of control. And he's got that problem. He's got a big immigration problem, as you know, and he's got a big energy problem. And we talk about, he's a good man. Prime Minister's a good man. I haven't spoken this week.
Have you spoken to President Zelensky, or do you intend to meet with them, President Zelensky, about your plan? Are you going to meet with them?
I've spoken with their people. We have a plan. It's horrible what's happening. It's a war that should have never happened. It would have never happened if I was president, and it's a shame. And I thought they should have acted quicker. But it's a cold winter, and a lot of the you talk about utilities, but a lot of the big energy producing plants have been under attack, to put it mildly, to put it nicely. We have a way of getting peace, or we think we have a way of getting peace. He's going to have to approve it. Just so sad, so many people. Last month they lost 25,000 soldiers. This is something, we haven't seen anything like this since the Second World War. And they're averaging 6,000 or 7,000 a week between the two of them, dead soldiers. And it goes on and on. And I think they're getting reasonably close, but I don't want to predict. I would have said that would have been one of my early ones. I did 8 peace deals of countries, including in India, Pakistan. You could even go, in fact, they're coming here in a week or two, go to the Congo and Rwanda. That was 10 million people dead. And we worked something out on that, but so many. And the one I thought would have been, for me, because I have a very good relationship with President Putin, I thought that would have been maybe quicker. But it does take 2 to tango. And now you just see all the death. And, it doesn't affect us other than the fact that we don't want to see all those people dead. Really, it's on the other side of the ocean. The person also sitting right behind this desk. This is a war that should have never happened, and it wouldn't have happened if I were president. But we're trying to save a lot of lives. They're losing 25,000 lives over the last short period of time. That's Ukrainian and Russian, and it's a shame.
I want to ask the mayor-elect about a House resolution just passed overwhelmingly to condemn socialism, including with 86 Democrats, all of House Dem leadership, and the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, despite his endorsement of you. What's your reaction to that?
I have to be honest with you, I've focused very little on resolutions. Frankly, I've been focusing.
Condemn socialism.
I understand. I think the focus is on the work at hand. I can tell you I am someone who is a democratic socialist. I've been very open about that. And I know there might be differences about ideology, but the place of agreement is the work that needs to be done to make New York City affordable. That's what I look forward to.
And I want to clarify your answer to Stephen Nelson. He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist. And your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about.
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay.
Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
And Mr. President, I wanted to ask you also about this Ukraine plan. President Zelensky said today that his country would risk either giving up a partner or giving up its dignity. There's been criticism that this deal proposal.
He doesn't like it?
It's unclear. He was sort of tenuous about
He'll
it.
have to like it. And if he doesn't like it, then, they should just keep fighting, I guess,
The suggestion that he made, though, was that if he doesn't accept it, that the U.S. would pull back its support for Ukraine. Is that
Well, at some
accurate?
point, he's going to have to accept something. He hasn't accepted. You remember right in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards. Don't forget, I inherited this war. This war never would have happened. I inherited this war. And I thought he should have made a deal a year ago, 2 years ago. The ultimate deal would have been if it never started. That would have been the good deal. That could have been done too if you had the right president, but you didn't have the right president.
Mr. President, the cost of living is something that you and Mr. Mamdani seem to agree on. Democrats have run New York City for a long time, Mr. Mamdani. Do you see Democrat policy specifically as being a problem? And I'd like that be a question that both of you could answer in New York City.
Look, I think that there are many things in our city where we have to own the responsibility of it, things that existed long before the president was the president. And those are also part of the message of our campaign, was to take on a broken politics of the past. And I ran against a number of candidates who represented different versions of that past. And what we found time and again is that working people were left behind in the politics of our city. And what we're looking to do is put those people right back at the heart of our politics so that we don't have a situation where we're in the wealthiest city in the history of the world, and yet 1 in 5 can't even afford $2.90 for a Metro card.
We had some interesting conversation, and some of his ideas really are the same ideas that I have. But a big thing on cost, the new word is affordability. Another word is just groceries. It's sort of an old-fashioned word, but it's very accurate. And they're coming down high. They were, we had, both of us, we had the highest inflation in the history of our country the last 4 years under the Biden administration. And we've got inflation down now to a normal number. It's going to go even a little bit lower than that. Katie, do you have something?
Mr. President, thank you so much. Mr. Mamdani often talks about New York City being covered by international law, that they will follow international law. Doesn't often talk about the U.S. Constitution. What is your response to that?
Well, I don't know what you're referring to in terms of it can be covered by international law, local law. It's covered by a lot of laws, but it's covered by U.S. law. Are you referring to anything in particular?
He just says that they're a city that endorses and enforces international law. Is that at odds with
No,
US
I don't
law?
know. Would you want to respond to
Yeah,
that?
I think what I've shared with the president is our desire to not only follow the laws of our own city, laws that protect New Yorkers, but also a desire for consistency in our politics across the board. And that's something that we've talked about and something that I know many New Yorkers want.
We were with ICE. We were with ICE.
We discussed ICE and New York City, and I spoke about how the laws that we have in New York City allow for New York City government to speak to the federal administration for about 170 serious crimes. The concerns that many New Yorkers have are around the enforcement of immigration laws on New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. And most recently, we're talking about a mother and her 2 children, how this has very little to do with what that is.
What we did is we discussed crime more than ICE per se. We discussed crime, and he doesn't want to see crime, and I don't want to see crime. And I have very little doubt that we're not going to get along on that issue. He wants to, and he said some things that were very interesting as to housing construction, and he wants to see houses go up. He wants to see a lot of houses created, a lot of apartments built, et cetera. And, we actually, people would be shocked, but I want to see the same thing.
Mr. Mamdani, the anti-Israel protesters.
Yeah,
Mr. President, I want to know one of the policies as well that Mayor-elect Mamdani talked a number of times about on the campaign was shifting the tax burden for property taxes from what he called minority communities to white-based communities and putting more taxes on white people. I also noticed that in your acceptance speech, you didn't mention anything about America or Christians or white people in general. And so I didn't know if that was one of the policies that you guys had spoken about.
we focused on affordability. We focused on the cost of living crisis. What I will say is that I am very much interested in property tax reform, because what we see right now in New York City is a system that is so inequitable that it can't even stand up in court. And the president and I spoke about the importance of not only building more housing, but also making sure that regulation of housing is something that is manageable to actually get through, and not the cause of yet another weight that we see in
But
our
to be
city.
clear, you're continuing this idea of race-based property taxes.
No, to be very clear,
That's what you said.
no, the use of the term was a description of neighborhoods, not a description of intent.
So you intend to tax the whiter neighborhoods more?
No, we intend to create a fair property tax system because we want a New York City that is not only fair and equitable, but also one that every New Yorker can afford.
Mr. Mamdani, anti-Israel protesters
Please, go ahead.
Mr. Mamdani, anti-Israel protesters just targeted a synagogue in New York. Are you concerned about Jewish New Yorkers feeling welcome and safe in the city? And President Trump, you've threatened to cut off federal funding to New York City. What policies would prompt you to do that? Would that be city-run grocery stores? Would it be something else?
Well, I think if we didn't get along, whether it's cut off or just make it a little bit difficult or not give as much, we want to see, I use the term, we don't want good money going after bad. And we don't want that to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I did say that, subject to what policies are being said. We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there. The rent coming down, I think one of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down ideally by building a lot of additional housing.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate way. He agrees with that, and so do I. But if I read the newspapers and the stories, I don't hear that. But I heard him say it today, and I think that's a very positive step. No, I don't expect. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, Dave de Blasio. I thought it was a tremendous setback for the city. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great.
Mr. President, Mr. President,
you.
Thank you, Mr. President. You're a billionaire. You have a different address nowadays than you used to, but you used to call New York City home. Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I would, especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you comfortable?
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I think I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job. He may have different views, but in many ways, we were discussing when Bernie Sanders was out of the race, I picked up a lot of his votes, and people had no idea, because he was strong on not getting ripped off in trade and lots of the things that I've practiced and been very successful on. Tariffs, a lot of things. Bernie Sanders and I agreed on much more than people thought. And when he was put out of the race, I think quite unfairly, if you want to know the truth, many of the Bernie Sanders voters voted for me. And I felt very comfortable, frankly, in seeing that and saying that. And, it just turned out to be a statistical truth. But no, I feel very comfortable. I would feel very, very comfortable being in New York. And I think much more so after the meeting. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for you, but a very quick one for the mayor. Why did you fly here? Aren't trains greener?
I'll use every form of transit, and I want to make sure that they're all affordable in New York City, and that's why making buses fast and free is a centerpiece of our campaign.
There is a bus that goes.
Well, I know, but if he flew, that's a lot quicker too. He's working very hard. For him to be, that's a very long drive. I'll stick up for you. The plane takes you 30 minutes and driving takes you a
And
long
Mr.
time.
President, I was wondering if you could clear up some confusion around a Washington Post report. There was this explosive report that the Coast Guard is no longer going to characterize swastikas and nooses as hate symbols. DHS called that a lie and fake news. Can you clear up?
I don't know anything about it. When was this written?
I think yesterday.
Well, look, the Coast Guard's an incredible group of people. I know them very well. We just ordered a lot of new Coast Guard cutters, beautiful, the most magnificent ship. They look like yachts with lots of guns on them. So I don't know. I haven't seen any report like that, but certainly we want them to remain a great force, and they are.
You are a peacemaker, and you did a peace in all the 9 months around the world. I would like to ask Mr. Mamdani, You've accused the U.S. government of committing genocide in Gaza while President Trump was working on peace. Why that?
I've spoken about the Israeli government committing genocide, and I've spoken about our government funding it. And I shared with the president in our meeting about the concern that many New Yorkers have of wanting their tax dollars to go towards the benefit of New Yorkers and their ability to afford basic dignity. And what we see right now is we're in the 9th consecutive year of more than 100,000 school children being homeless in our city. And there's a desperate need not only for the following of human rights, but also the following through on the promises we've made New Yorkers. And I appreciated the meeting we had and the work that we can do.
Do you agree that President Trump did do a peace and work hard to make the peace, because he worked hard to do the peace in the Middle East and everywhere? What do you agree with that?
I appreciate all efforts towards peace, and I shared with President Trump that when I spoke to Trump voters on Hillside Avenue, including one of whom was a pharmacist that spoke about how President Trump's father actually went to that pharmacy not too far from Jamaica Estates, that people were tired of seeing our tax dollars fund endless wars. And I also believe that we have to follow through on the international human rights. And I know that still today, those are being violated, and that continues to be work that has to be done no matter where we're speaking of.
Mr. President, question for Mr. Thank you, Mr. President. Do you view the mayor-elect as the true leader of the Democrat Party? And do you think Leader Schumer's and Leader Jeffries, have to follow his lead?
Well, look, I hope they have great leaders. This is a man that right now I think is focused in New York City. I really think he has a chance to do a great job. We're going to help him, but I really think he has a chance to do a great job. But I'll let you answer that. You consider yourself the leader of the Democrats? I think it's more appropriate for him.
I consider myself the next mayor of New York City, and I keep my horizons firmly on New York City. And I appreciate the meeting with the president, which focused again on the 5 boroughs and whether New Yorkers could afford to live there.
By the way, being the mayor of New York City is a big deal.
Absolutely.
I always said, one of the things I would love to be someday is the mayor of New York City. Being the mayor of New York, and especially now, because I think you're at really a turning point, one way or the other. It could go great, or it can go in a different direction. And I think you really have a chance to make it great.
Mr. President, you say you love New York City. Mr. Mamdani, does New York City love President Trump?
New York City loves a future that is affordable. And I can tell you that there were more New Yorkers who voted for President Trump in the most recent presidential election because of that focus on cost of living. And I'm looking forward to working together to deliver on that affordability agenda.
I got a lot of votes. One more. Go ahead. 1 or 2 more. Go ahead. I tell you, the press has eaten this thing up. I've had a lot of meetings with the heads of major countries. Nobody cared. This meeting that you people have gone, outside you have hundreds of people waiting. This is just a small little group. For some reason, the press has found this to be a very interesting meeting. The biggest people in the world, they come over from countries nobody cares, but they did care about this meeting, and it was a great meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. President, I was going to ask you exactly that. Why do you think there's so much more, so much excitement around this than even some foreign leaders?
Because I think he's different. All right. I think he's different, and that can be in a very positive way, but I think he's different than, your typical guy runs, wins, becomes mayor maybe, and nothing exciting, because he has a chance to really do something great for New York. New York is at a very critical point, and he does need the help of the federal government to really succeed, and we're going to be helping him. But he's different than, your average candidate. He came out of nowhere. I said he has a great campaign manager standing over there. He came out of nowhere. Would you start off at 1 or 2? And then I watched. I said, who is this guy? He was at 1, then he was at 3, then he was at 5, then he was at 9. Then he went up to 17. I said, that's getting a little bit interesting, right? And then all of a sudden he wins a primary that nobody expected he was going to win. It's a great tribute. I mean, it's an amazing thing that he did.
And I'll just add one thing to what the president said. Is one thing I also appreciated is in our meeting to appreciate a portrait of FDR and the incredible work that was done with the New Deal, and also in thinking about what it can look like when the federal government and New York City government work together to deliver on affordability. It can be transformative.
We have a great portrait of FDR that I found in the vaults that was missing for years. I found it and I put it up. He's a Democrat, to the best of my knowledge. He's a Democrat. And when the mayor saw that portrait, he said, "Sir, do you mind if I have a picture taken by that portrait?" It's an amazing portrait. I hope the picture comes out good. But it's an amazing portrait in the cabinet room. So he's a big fan of the New Deal, I guess, and of FDR. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said that you both spoke about crime. There are many police officers set to come off the rolls at the end of this year in New York City. Are you going to allow those police to be replaced with police officers, actual cops? And are you going to require that that happens? Would there be some consequence if the
Well, I hope
staff?
it happens, but again, that's going to be ultimately the mayor's decision.
What's your answer?
Is that I look forward to delivering public safety with the NYPD. And I've said over the course of our campaign that we have the number of police officers today. They are the ones that's budgeted about 35,000 headcount. And I think the key thing is that we have to make it easier for police to focus on police work, not ask them to respond to 200,000 mental health calls a year.
So is that a reduction from what you're at right now? Are you committing to maintaining the same level of cops?
I've committed over the course of the campaign to maintain the 35,000. That's the headcount that we had through the
And
campaign.
not replace them with caseworkers, social workers?
No, I've said that's the headcount that we want. What we need to do is make sure they can focus on serious crime.
And he just retained a great police commissioner, I believe, right?
Yes,
If
yes,
the-
we did. Commissioner
if
Tisch.
If the newspapers are correct.
That one
Just-
they're correct about.
He retained, I think, somebody that is she's a good friend of some of the people in my family, of Ivanka, and they say she's really good, really competent, and he just retained her, so that's a good sign.
Mr. President, are there still topics that you see the two of you disagreeing on in the future? And do you think you'll have more meetings like this?
There will be topics that we disagree on. I think we'll probably come to a conclusion, and ultimately, he'll convince me or I'll convince him, it's for the good of New York. Ultimately, it's for the good of New York. I don't care about affiliations or parties or anything else. I want to see if this city could be unbelievable, if he could be a spectacular success, I'd be very happy.
Do you think you guys will meet more in the future too?
So,
Do you think you'll meet again in the future, throughout the administration?
I think we will. I hope we do. I enjoyed the meeting. We had a great meeting. Please.
Mr. President, Republican Elise Stefanik has campaigned multiple times by calling Zohran Mamdani a jihadist. Do you think you're standing next to a jihadist right now in the Oval Office?
No, I don't, but she's out there campaigning, and you say things sometimes in a campaign.
Isn't that sort of
She's a very capable person,
Isn't
but
that a kind of label?
you really have to ask her about that. But no, I don't particularly. I think I met with I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again. And I can say again, because New York was great. When I came down to Washington initially, the city was so hot. It was doing great. We were having some telltale signs and problems. We had a mayor that was not doing a great job, but still, it was moving along. And it went bad. It really went, pretty bad. And I think it's been at lower points, but it went pretty bad. I think he can bring it back. Now, the question is, will he bring it back all the way? Will he bring it back greater than ever before, which is, I guarantee, that's his wish. I think he wants to make it greater than ever before. And if he can, we'll be out there cheering. I'll be cheering for him. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody.
You chose not to answer the question about the city hall protest.
Thank you very much.
Before skincare went synthetic, people used something simple, something real, tallow. Grass-fed and finished beef tallow is packed with vitamins A, D, E, and K. Nutrients your skin actually knows what to do with. It locks in moisture, restores elasticity, and defends against winter dryness. No water, no preservatives, and no BS. Unlike plant oils or chemical creams, tallow mimics your skin's own structure. Elbows, hands, knees, post-shave, anywhere your skin's crying for real moisture. Perfect for gifting or keeping your own skin soft when the cold hits. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code Badlands for 15% off. Ancient Care, modern truth.